Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. A retired Whitehorse teacher has successfully appealed his sexual assault conviction. Paul Dooling filed his appeal immediately after he was sentenced last year, and the court has found in his favor. Jackie Hong has more.
A panel of appeal judges agreed the appropriate remedy was to toss the conviction and enter an acquittal. Dooling had a judge-alone trial 2 years ago on allegations dating back to the 80s. A former student accused him of sexually touching and later sexually assaulting her from the time she was an elementary school student until she was a young adult. The judge found Dooling not guilty on 4 of 5 charges because the complainant's testimony was unreliable. However, he found Dooling guilty on 1 count of sexual assault, saying the complainant's testimony in that case was accurate and compelling. The appeal court, however, said that was an issue. It ruled the trial judge couldn't find deep problems with the complainant's testimony, but suddenly find her trustworthy in one circumstance. The appeal judges said a new trial for Dooling was not appropriate. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Police in Fort Resolution, Northwest Territories say they've arrested a 74-year-old man after 3 people were injured at a home in the community. The man has not been identified and charges are pending. This comes after 3 people went to the medical clinic around 3 a.m. yesterday. They all had injuries from an edged weapon and they were all treated and released. Police say they were told someone also fired a gun at the 3 as they fled the scene of the incident. Officers recovered a rifle from the scene. Midwives in Fort Smith are adding their voices to calls for the territory to reinstate funding for midwifery services in Yellowknife. Yellowknife services are facing a proposed cut of almost $1 million. Carla Ulrich has that story.
Midwifery saves lives, it improves health outcomes, it costs less than high intervention services. So why are we not investing in that?
Fort Smith resident Leslie Paulette played a major role in expanding midwifery in the territory. She's been a midwife since the early 90s and helped develop the first midwifery program in the NWT. Paulette says the Yellowknife expansion has been in the works for over 7 years and that cutting the program goes against the commitment to increase midwifery services throughout the territory. She says right now is the time to come together to strengthen the program instead of cutting it.
We're at a point where we could revisit and renew the vision for the territorial midwifery program and recommit to making it work. But I think there needs to be a real collaboration. There are people who are interested in getting midwifery care going in Yellowknife within the health authority. So now's the time to get all these people to the table and say, okay, let's take a look at this. We have the funding to do it. What do we need to do to get it happening as soon as possible? Like, let's remove the roadblocks. Let's overcome the barriers.
Fort Smith's Farah Friend has birthed 6 children in the community with the help of the midwives. She now works with moms and babies through their prenatal journey and postpartum journey and has seen how important the local midwifery program is. She says the proposed budget cuts to the Yellowknife expansion program will have lasting effects on future and current mothers.
It comes naturally to just be there and take care of another fellow mother coming from midwives. That's what we've been designed to do. And when I say we, I say that in respect to my ancestors who were also midwives on the land. And that's how they brought many babies forth and helped other women do the same thing. And it seems like that's the only way that we should keep moving forward, is helping other women give birth.
Friend says that the midwives offer a special connection to women in their most vulnerable time, and that's why funding must continue. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
Yukon Premier Ranch Pillay is defending his government's decision to halt applications to the nominee program. It's a program that's supposed to speed up the permanent residency process to address labor shortages. The pause has been called short-sighted and heavy-handed by some business owners, but Pillay says it couldn't have been avoided. He says the federal government cut the spots in the program from 600 last year to 430, and they simply have more applications than they can take.
Look, I think that you've seen the numbers across the country become restricted. So there's a real rush, I think, in every province and territory by folks that have come to Canada that are trying to figure out the pathways. You think about 400,000 students that were coming through these different post-secondary avenues, which of course has affected things here. So, we're looking at these students that have successfully graduated from UConn University, and how do we prioritize those students in 2025? So we're looking at our programs to say, look, if you've come to the UConn, you've gone to UConn University, you've got a work visa from UConn University, how do we get you into the nominee program? But there's a tremendous amount of students, and we saw it last summer. They were coming from Ontario, they're coming from British Columbia. They had a post-secondary work visa with hopes that if they got to the UConn, that some business would nominate them. And so that, of course, has put more pressure on us. This has happened, by the way, these pauses in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Nova Scotia. So it's happening in different forms for different programs across the country. Mm-hmm. I think right now, the most folks are now pivoting to other jurisdictions that haven't used all their allocations, which may be just one, like Northwest Territories. So for us, it's going to be, how do we, as we go forward, how do we make sure we prioritize appropriately?
That was Yukon Premier Ranj Pillay talking about the Yukon government's decision to halt applications to the nominee program. Today marks 5 years since a national inquiry released its final report into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The report includes more than 200 calls for justice, recommendations that governments and public institutions promised to act on. But the overwhelming majority of the recommendations have yet to be honored. And the former commissioners who made those calls are growing frustrated, waiting for progress.
Very, very difficult to see if there is progress, specifically to respond on the calls for justice. Very difficult to monitor or to see that in BC, this is what they did. In Quebec, this is what they said they would do or didn't do. And at the federal government also, here where they're at, even though since we gave the report 5 years ago, all governments knew exactly how many calls for justice were presented to them or specifically for them. So some would say they do things, but because we have nothing to monitor, it's hard to respond. So of course, we're frustrated, disappointed, or how can I say, we are losing, or we lost faith in what they said they would do.
How are they doing? Not very well, in my view. We haven't seen much in the way of systemic change that the commissioners and I called for in our final report 5 years ago. We are still looking at budget allocations, but no accounting for what was actually spent and whether that was a productive or a reasonable expenditure. Did we accomplish the goals we wanted for that money, for example? We're still getting handouts essentially from the federal government about, here's money for a project that has a limited lifespan. I don't think any Canadian should be satisfied with federal government handouts, especially for a crisis like missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Canada. We have to remember that the National Inquiry's final report was aimed at all governments, not just the feds, but provincial, territorial, municipal, and Indigenous governments. So we have to hold all of those governments to account.
The federal government says this is still a priority. It says it's committed more than $2 billion to make progress on the report's recommendations. The wildfire burning southwest of Fort Liard is now officially under control. NWT Fire says crews have managed to clear fuel and protect the full edge on the west side of the Liard River. It says the fire was burning up to 4 feet deep into the ground in places. This is the wildfire that put Fort Liard on notice to be ready for evacuation last month. It took a month of work to bring it under control with help from fire teams from all over the NWT, Yukon, and New Brunswick. It's been 1 year since wildfires burned through forests and fields in northern Alberta, leaving charred communities in their wake. Some residents are still not able to return home, including people from Fox Lake, a part of Little Red River Cree Nation. Dennis Coveton has their story.
Nancy Blessy has been living in this inn for nearly a year after wildfires forced her and hundreds of other members of Little Red River Cree Nation to flee their homes in Fox Lake last May.
It was horrifying. Nothing I'd ever dreamed of going through, but yeah, it was terrible.
Here in High Level, the Flamingo Inn opened its doors to welcome Blessy and other evacuees.
I look at all evacuations as I would like to do to the people as I would like done to myself. So I really push to give the best service and the best options available to them at any time.
And yet,
Everybody's nice, but still, it'd be nice to go back home.
according to Indigenous Services Canada, there were 525 long-term evacuees from Fox Lake living in temporary housing as of May 2024. The nation says 3,400 members have returned to the community. Rebuilding efforts in Fox Lake are ongoing, but the progress is slow.
The primary issue is that the community is so isolated to start with. So to bring things in by air is punishingly expensive. So your best chance to bring things in is either by barge or in the winter by ice roads and ice bridges.
But warm weather and river fluctuations can make ice roads unreliable.
It was next to impossible for them to bring in the building supplies or the construction equipment. And now it's summer again.
Little Red River Cree Nation says reconstruction could take another 3 years. Experts state the lack of cohesive government strategies for managing disasters like the one that occurred at Fox Lake could be hampering the rebuilding progress.
This is fundamentally an issue of federal leadership. The federal government needs to prioritize disaster preparation and management, and that includes things like working with the provinces to make sure that infrastructure is in place before disasters happen.
The federal government says it works with First Nations both to prepare for emergencies and after they occur in order to restore infrastructure. While the reconstruction process grinds on, displaced Fox Lake residents have to adapt to their temporary home communities.
They had no place to return to, so they stayed here. Their children go to school here, and they've become part of our community, but still living in the motels and hotels.
In Fox Lake, Nancy Blessy was working in a school as a student liaison. Now she's working security for one of the local hotels.
It's been kind of hard, but I'm hanging in there, getting a new job and being security. I like doing that.
So while she's found comfort in her new routines, nothing can replace home.
It's tough for everybody to lose their homes and everything, be away from home for a year. I hope everybody can go back home.
Blessy herself has been back to Fox Lake several times since the fire, but still doesn't know when she'll be able to move back permanently. Dennis Coveton, CBC News, High Level.
Alberta is planning to upgrade and expand its aerial wildfire fleet. Millions are earmarked to add to the arsenal. The CBC's Wallace Snowden explored what it's like for the pilots to fight fires from above.
When the fight against wildfires takes to the sky, air tankers are the giants of the fleet. The machines have been a mainstay of Alberta's arsenal for years.
It's nice to have good management over the fire.
Crystal Fairbank, a pilot with Airspray, describes them as the muscle. Unlike smaller skimmer planes that pull water from lakes and rivers, tankers bomb the flames with massive volumes of fire retardant. Each mission is carefully choreographed by a bird dog plane that ensures each drop hits the best spot.
The bird dog's the lead aircraft, you would say, or more of the brains of the fire, and the tankers are the brawn. They come and do their work.
Fairbank fights fires from the cockpit of a twin-engined Electra, one of two under contract to Alberta. The planes once carried around 100 passengers on commercial flights, but have been repurposed as fast, effective weapons in the firefight. The work is transient and intense, but after more than a decade on the job, Fairbank has no plans to step away from the cockpit.
I love the job. There's nothing mundane about it. You just never know where you're going to be. And I feel like we are helping.
Wallace Snowden, CBC News, Edmonton.
When we see Team Canada on the world stage, we're witnessing pure greatness. What we don't see is their struggle. We don't see Maggie McNeil navigating her anxiety, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander getting cut from his high school team, or Ellie Black hearing she's just too old to compete. What we don't see makes us who we are. We're all bravely facing the odds in our lives, and our bravery is our victory.
This is the CFBC's largest attachment, home to elite units, federal and municipal scope. Congratulations on making the cut.
Have you spoken with your father?
We're coming for you and everyone like you.
I would rather be Baroque than blue. There's lots of reasons to not be a cop.
And a Surrey girl should know all of them.
Maybe you should reconsider the uniform and everything that it represents.
I'd rather fight from inside it to make a change.
Everyone listen up.
Bursting with flavor.
All these guys 21?
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Owning an NHL team.
Penguins had us review your offer, and it looks good.
Wow.
Get me on the phone with Cops Coliseum.
Tell them I want to buy it.
That is music to the ears of every Edmonton Oilers fans. Their team is headed to the Stanley Cup final. It is the first time in 18 years the Oilers have made it this far. They'll be taking on the Florida Panthers, who have never won the Cup but did play in the final last year. As Travis McEwen reports, it's been a long and at times frustrating road for Edmonton to get to this point.
It's an excitement boiling over so rapidly, fans are losing their shirts. The streets were loud and boisterous in downtown Edmonton after a 2-1 Oilers win over the Dallas Stars. With a goal so smooth by Connor McDavid, it needs to be watched again and again to fully appreciate it. And now the team is going to the Stanley Cup final to play the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I made a cup, so I was excited.
Unbelievable experience. I don't know, I'm just happy for the Oilers, I'm not gonna lie. I've seen that we've been working this season, and you can just see that it's paid off.
But some of those young fans may not have been alive in 2006, the last time the Oilers were in the Stanley Cup final, when fans were filling White Avenue with wilder behavior and police moving in to get control. Those championship dreams were dashed by another Southern U.S. team, the Carolina Hurricanes, followed by years of draft picks and plenty of losses, some followed by boos.
5 seconds to go.
While alumni of the good and bad seasons feel good about the current team's chances to bring the cup back to Edmonton.
When you have two of the best players in the world on your team, that makes it, a little easier. I shouldn't say easier, but you have that in your back pocket where one of those two players can, take a game over and, change the outcome in a positive way for sure.
And it's not just fans from Edmonton expected to show up in the Sunshine State. Some already live there and make sure to support the Oil.
In the last couple of years, the Panthers have gotten a lot better.
and the prices have gone up quite a bit. But it's okay. But yeah, it's all worth it. These types of things are memory makers, so wouldn't miss it.
Now the hype's expected to simmer for a little bit, as Game 1's going to be in Miami on Saturday, and then it's going to return here for the series in Rogers Place on June 13th, where that hunger for a Stanley Cup final, nearly 2 decades in the making, is expected to have fans spilling into downtown once again. Travis McEwen, CBC News, Edmonton.
And did you catch this? At last night's game, the NWT flag proudly held up against the glass. It showed up a few times. There were lots of questions on social media about who was sitting front row for such an important game, and it was these two, William Michaud and his son Joseph from Fort Smith NWT. Michaud tells us the tickets were a 14th birthday present for his son, not a bad way to spend your birthday. The Oilers aren't the only ones winning big recently. Inuk activist Ayu Peter now has another accolade to add to her list, a Canadian Screen Award. Twice Colonized won the prize for Best Feature-Length Documentary. It follows Peter's journey working through her trauma from colonization and the death of her youngest son in 2018.
It's something we need to talk about. And I think that's what has started when I've been screening in Greenland, in Denmark, in southern Canada. People are not only Inuit, not only Indigenous people, but many people from other countries see so much of their own pain of loss of language and loss of culture.
Nunavut filmmakers Alethea Ungnakuk-Baril and Stacey Ugluck-McDonald helped produce the documentary. They say they got a flurry of text messages about the award while filming another production in Iqaluit.
That was an intense production that we're really proud of, and it's really nice to see Ayu getting her flowers.
Inuk actor Alexis Vincent Wolfe was also nominated for Best Performance in a Supporting Role in the film Slashback, which was set in Pangnuktu. You can watch some of the highlights from this year's Canadian Screen Awards on CBC Gem. The streets of Yellowknife filled with color and pride this Sunday as the second annual Yellowknife Pride Parade hit the streets. There was a large turnout despite a cold, windy start to the day. The CBC's Luke Carroll takes us there.
Pride has and always will be a protest. That is its intonation, like what it's always been about. And we need to remind people that some of us don't have the same access to rights and safety that the rest of us get to enjoy without actually ever thinking about it. We have a float from the YK ceasefire group as well, no pride in genocide. We want to make sure that we're staying as in the moment and paying attention to what's happening in the world, as well as talking about what's happening in Canada and the US.
Both of us are very big supporters of the Life Group, which is our GSA of our
it's
school.
like an acronym for lived inclusion for everyone.
We have a very strong community and we have a very strong allyship community, and I feel like we will, I'm hopeful that today we will see a huge turnout of people to protest and celebrate too. Pride is also about celebration of our community.
I mean, sure, I'm all in black, but got the sparkle.
I really just would like to shout out all of our amazing volunteers, everyone that is behind the scenes who we probably won't even know, everyone who's been a part of the festival, doing all of the heavy lifting. Thank you to everyone who continues to show up to support our events.
And it wasn't just downtown Yellowknife that was busy this weekend. The Yellowknife Shooting Club held an open house at the outdoor range. Rifles, shotguns, handguns, and archery were all on display, and we went down to check it out.
Today is range day. It's an opportunity for people who may not otherwise have access to the shooting range, might not be members, that want to try different disciplines, whether it's a shotgun or rifle or even handguns, in a safe, controlled environment where it's an opportunity to just try things and meet different people. That's the target that we're shooting. It's about a 3.5-inch round clay, and it's a breakable. It's almost as fragile as eggs, and it flies out like a frisbee, like a disc. I think it flies out at about 70 kilometers an hour, so it comes out of the house pretty fast.
It's really fun, good adrenaline, and you feel pretty accomplished when you actually get a hit. So,
well, I've been hunting my whole life, and bird hunting here, a lot of fun. The nice thing about this is there's no cleanup. I don't have to clean a bird after I shoot it. This is a national event, so people can come out and they can shoot shotgun, they can shoot rifle, they can shoot handgun, they can shoot silhouette with a .22. There's even an archery stand at the very, very end. So there's all types of different disciplines that people can come out and, you know, just explore different disciplines and do it in a fun, safe environment. So.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. One quick note before we go. I believe I said William Michaud and his son Joseph are from Fort Smith. They are from Fort Simpson. They were the ones holding up the NWT flag at the Oilers game. They're from Fort Simpson, and we're so glad that they got to go to that game. We leave you tonight with video captured this weekend along the Cameron River near Yellowknife. A group of otters went fishing for suckers in the rapids. Thank you to Steve Budgell for sharing this video. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
We fight the best we can.
One of these days, we're gonna have to grow up. But today is not that day.
I don't want us to get older either. Son of a Critch. Watch free on CBC Gem.
So, you want to watch CBC News Explore, a new kind of news channel. Well, here's one way to find us. We're on CBC Gem. Stream anytime for free. CBC News Explore.